Yo, what you lot saying? It's your boy Boy here. Today what I've got for you is the F1 2015 Chinese Grand Prix review for you guys. Sorry if this is a little late, to be honest. It's just because, you know, there's been other motorsports going on, World Endurance Championship, and of course the Blancpain Endurance Series. So yeah, sorry about that, but at least I am doing it on a Sunday, so yeah. And as well, there will be another video later on for the MotoGP Grand Prix of the Americas review, so yeah, make sure you check that out. But for now, let's do this review. So it got underway in very serious matters as a guy, you may have heard this on the news, a guy ran across a live racetrack while practice was going on. The reason being was that he wanted to go and see the Ferrari. He wanted to have go in a Formula 1 car, but I think he kind of didn't understand the dynamics of spectatorship. That you don't run across the racetrack when it's live. You don't do that, and you don't go in the pit lane unless you have pit access. So yeah, I think if you want to get up close and personal with these cars, go get pit access. You know, when they're doing pit walks and all that, do that. Don't just be like all running about and whatnot. He must have been drunk as well, for that matter, to be honest. So yeah, very stupid, because imagine if he was wearing Velcros, if one of his Velcros came off and he fell over, stacked him, he could have been in serious danger. So yeah, I mean, just stupid behaviour, I think, and deserves to be arrested. So yeah. But yeah, as well in practice, we saw a couple of people struggling with the track, particularly with braking, to be honest, as Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg ran wide. They locked up their brakes and ran wide in some areas of the track. And one man who had a big moment with his brakes was Felipe Massa, who brake broke and his car veered to the left, putting him in the barriers. There was a little bit of damage, and that was the end of Felipe Massa's session. So yeah. So yeah, moving on into qualifying. Qualifying went reasonably okay. No real dramas going on, to be honest. So yeah, so the cars that were in Q1 were, of course, the Mana Marussias. We had Hulkenberg surprisingly out of Q1, unlucky. Really unlucky for Hulkenberg there. So yeah, of course the McLaren Hondas, I expected them to be out of Q1, to be honest, because I mean they're well off the pace. I think it's going to take them a while for them to be out of Q1 and into Q2, and maybe even into and then maybe next year into Q3. So yeah, it's going to take them time, but time is the best healer. So yeah. So yeah, and then into Q2, a lot of the drivers going out on the track setting quick times. The guys that were out were Kvyat, unlucky for him. Verstappen was out, unlucky for him. Perez was out, and yeah, that was about it. So unfortunate for those guys there. And then into Q3, Hamilton at the start of the session put in a blistering lap, 1:35.7, I believe. A great lap by Lewis Hamilton there. Nico tried to beat him but didn't. He was 2 tenths off on his first run, followed by Vettel, who came third. So yeah, and then into the final lap, Hamilton tried to beat his best time, his pole position time, but lost out by a couple of tenths, and that gave an opportunity as a result to Nico Rosberg, as he tried to get onto pole position but did not do it because he was only a few hundredths off him. So yeah, unfortunate from Nico Rosberg. You know, always getting beaten by his teammate Lewis Hamilton this year. But hopefully he can turn it around. Hopefully he can turn it around for him, and you know, and make ground and make some heading on Lewis. So yeah. And Sebastian Vettel, like I said, third place, good drive, good lap by him there. Massa fourth, yeah, Massa fourth, good on him there. Raikkonen fifth, good on him as well. Bottas sixth. So yeah. So at the start, before the race, Lewis got a little bit agitated by the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel at when he was doing his practice starts before going onto the grid. He did his practice starts, but was a little bit annoyed because he felt that Vettel was blocking him, which, to be honest, I can see where he's coming from, because it's, you know, he's kind of distracting him because he's getting in front of him and, you know, all that stuff and all that. But you know, Vettel did not like. Vettel gave him a car's width. He knew he was around he knew he was alongside, so he gave him enough space. So I don't think it was a massive block, to be honest. You know, it was a little bit, but not too much, I would say, to be honest. So yeah. And then before the start of the race, when Lewis is going into his grid spot, Lewis goes in an extreme angle. He points his car straight at Nico Rosberg, so that Lewis can get ahead of Nico Rosberg, so that he can beat Nico Rosberg in the race. So at the start of the race, that's exactly what happened. He made a good start, got ahead of Nico Rosberg, and yeah. And then further down the field, we saw a little bit of argy-bargy going on between the Toro Rosso, I believe it was Sainz, and the Red Bull Kvyat and the Lotus of Maldonado. All three of them getting into a little bit of argy-bargy going on. And yeah, as a result, I think Sainz Spartan was shot into the back of the field. So yeah. And then later on, we saw some good passing going on, particularly with the two Red Bulls. They were fighting pretty hard. Kvyat was struggling with his tyres, and Ricciardo was really flying with his. So the team told Kvyat to let him by, but Kvyat did not let him by easily. He gave him a real big fight, and yeah, as a result, they almost touched. I mean, if they touched, it would have been, oh my days, it would have been probably like 2010 in Turkey, to be honest, you know. Them just absolutely absolutely enraged and whatnot. And that's what we don't want to see. We don't want to see two teammates taking each other out, so yeah. It close, but thankfully we didn't get any contact from the two Red Bulls. And as a result as well, we saw the two McLarens closely followed behind as well, as they tried to overtake the two Red Bulls. So yeah. And then later on, we saw some good passing going on. I think between the Toro Rossos and the Saubers and whatnot, they had some good battles going on throughout the race. And then later on, Sainz was out of the race. He reported some sort of problem, I think gearbox problem, so yeah, unlucky for Sainz there. Then afterwards, we had this little radio controversy going on between Lewis Hamilton. Now, before Vettel tried to undercut Rosberg in the first pit stop, but thankfully Rosberg was able to get out ahead of Sebastian Vettel and keep his second place. But on the second pit stop, Nico was getting a bit agitated. He was getting a bit annoyed about Lewis, you know, going too slow. He was saying, "Tell Lewis to go faster" and whatnot. And I think, in my opinion, Lewis, You know, I think what Lewis was doing was tyre preserving, making sure that he got the maximum tyre life out of his car, out of his tyres, so that he can have a better, stint on the last stint. So yeah. I mean, I don't think it was driver tactics, to be honest, because then later, I don't really feel it wasn't, to be honest. You know, I think in my opinion it was just him just preserving his tyres so that he can make the last stint on the mediums as short as he can. So yeah, I don't think it was driver tactics, to be honest. And then a couple laps after that, the team told Lewis that if he doesn't pick up his pace, then Nico was going to get first treatment, and then as a result could overtake Lewis Hamilton, could undercut Lewis Hamilton in the pit. So as a result, Lewis had to push, and he did. And what laps that he put down on the board, you know, fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap, putting about a 5 or 6 second gap to Nico Rosberg behind him. And then Sebastian Vettel pitted first. He switched on, I believe, to the mediums. And then later afterwards, Rosberg pitted for the mediums as well to try and cover Vettel, which I don't think they needed to, because you know when they were on as we heard from like practice, the Mercedes were way quicker than the Ferraris on the mediums, whereas on the softs the Ferraris were a little bit closer. So I don't know why they needed to do that. I guess he was a little bit closer, so yeah. If that's the case, if it was because they didn't want him to be behind, then that's fair enough. So yeah. And then later on we saw massive contact, and that was Jenson Button in the McLaren Honda hitting Pastor Maldonado with Fernando Alonso behind him, his teammate Fernando Alonso behind him, who narrowly avoided that accident. And yeah. Basically Button ran into the back of Maldonado going into turn 1, and Maldonado spun, and as a result there was a bit of front wing damage from Button there. And what do I think there? I think it's absolutely silly from Button there. Maldonado was entitled to take the inside line to defend his line. I think Button should have stayed on the outside, or maybe even backed off a little bit there. I know he had Alonso behind him, but you know, if Alonso ran into the back of Button, then it's Alonso's fault. So yeah, I think it was just a silly manoeuvre, a really silly, immature manoeuvre by Jenson Button there. And we're not used to seeing him doing that kind of stuff. We're not used to seeing him crash and whatnot, like making collisions and whatnot. He is usually the guy that doesn't make a lot of contact. So yeah. So I think Button's fault, all the way Button's fault. And then also as well, Kvyat had massive smoke in the car. His car was on fire, he reported, and had to jump out of the car quickly, and as a result he was out of the race. Unfortunate for him, his second retirement in 3 races, not going well for the Russian. So yeah. And then in the end, right at the end, we saw Max Verstappen in the Toro Rosso retiring from the race. He reported, I think, a gearbox problem. I'm not quite sure, a gearbox problem, I think it was. Yeah, and thankfully he was able to stop by the gate on the pit straight. And yeah. But sadly, and then as a result, the safety car came out, and we all thought that we were going to get one more lap of racing before the end of the race. But sadly, we did not get it, and as a result, Lewis Hamilton went through to win the Chinese Grand Prix. A very comfortable drive by him, even though in the middle of it he was getting pressured by the team to push harder. But other than that, it was a very, very solid drive by Lewis Hamilton, closely followed by Nico Rosberg behind him. Good race by Nico. as he tried to hold off Sebastian Vettel behind. Sebastian Vettel came home in 3rd place. Good drive by him, even though he was threatened at the end by Kimi Raikkonen. So yeah, good drive by everyone in the field, as well as Grosjean. I think Grosjean gave Lotus his first points this year, which is absolutely fantastic. Good for them, well deserved, because last year they had a torrid year. So for them to score some points is absolutely brilliant. Hopefully they'll score more, and hopefully they'll do a much better job than they did last year. So yeah, good drive by Grosjean as well. Good drive by the Williams as well, 5th and 6th. Good drive as well from Massa. Sucks that Bottas did not. Yeah, shame that Bottas did not get ahead of Massa. Hopefully he can repay the favour in Bahrain. So yeah, a very, very good, honest, good, decent race. So yeah. So that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. It's your boy, I'm out. Peace!